Welcome back to Fire Emblem Thracia 776. This is Chapter 15, which is the Choose Your Own Adventure subplot of this game. You can go to one of two routes by the end of this. You can either go to one of two sections on either side of the map and escape, essentially, or you can head to a central point and choose from there. So you must choose or die. Now, this chapter is going to have some important lessons for any prospective player or just burgeoning tactician, if you will. And there's also going to be some fun little tidbits about just the mechanics of this game and this chapter mainly. So buckle in. As I said, this is essentially an escape chapter, sort of, but you don't have to have everybody escape. It's just if anybody reaches either of those 2 points on the side, or if Leaf visits that church up beyond the mountains that you can just barely see there, then the chapter's over. So, as you might expect, you can be done with this chapter very quickly. We're in 2 times speed. And this video is a little bit over 20 minutes long, so you can imagine there are other things that you can accomplish in this. There's 4 houses you can visit. There are relatively weak units that you can farm. I have brought Homeros for that purpose. And there are these other characters who appear. There's Amalda, who's talking to the High Priest right now. And in a minute, Ralph is going to come out as well. Both of them are allied units. You can't recruit Amalda here, but you can recruit Ralph. And Sloof doesn't appear at all here. He just appears in the cutscene, and then he won't be appearing as a unit in this chapter, unfortunately. Sloof is an A-rank staff user at base, so that is huge, being able to get him for free. Just not here. And he's only on one of the routes. We're going to talk a little bit more about the routes in a moment, but let me just say the last thing that you can get in this chapter. If you bring Merida, which I have done, on a fairly late turn, it's like at least turn 10, I'm pretty sure, Shannon will appear, who was, if this was your first time playing the game, then you would have seen him in the cutscene with Homeros in the previous chapter, and he appears as a unit here. He's technically an enemy unit, but he is not hostile, and if you have Merida talk to him, he will, quote, teach, unquote, her Astra. So that's what I'm trying to do here, and you'll notice that I brought 3 flyers, all of my flyers, Leaf, of course, Merida, Homeros, and then if you don't visit the previous Gaiden, Linoan is force deployed here, because if you're in the Gaiden, she's force deployed there. So basically you just get her joining moment earlier if you visit that Gaiden, and then you don't have to deploy her here if you don't want. But if you don't visit it, then you have no choice but to take her along. So there's 2 ways you can go about this chapter. There's you can bring like the maximum number of units and just have tons of muscle, or you can go with a smaller squad like I did here. Now the problem is I went one route with that, but my objectives, the things that I set out to do in this map, don't align with those preps. So basically, if you want to get all the stuff on this map, including Astra, you want to bring a big group, because these bandits will sort of overwhelm you. I mean, they're not going to really hit anybody with like Leaf support, Kingsword support, standing in a forest or on a house or whatever. They're not that big of a threat. They just swarm you, and they're going straight for that church as long as nobody's standing on it, and also the houses. So you want to bring enough guys just so that you can like crowd control basically, And you also need to beware of the boss, who's up top there, who I just clicked on. This is another one of those bosses that's just ridiculously powerful. He can basically one-shot Marita, and his accuracy is really good. So, like, unless you somehow already grinded up your Marita to insane levels, she is in extreme danger if you leave her in range of that guy. So that's like your barrier to getting Astra. But I mean, it's not that hard to get around him. But then that goes back to, well, you wanted to play enough units so that you can manage the terrain and everything, because none of these guys here are in danger per se right at this moment. But there's only so much that like Leaf on his own can do, especially when these guys are going to just run right past him and go for houses and stuff. And that's another thing, is you want to have some guys to fight and some guys to visit. Mind you, I can. I have played this chapter in a way before where I was able to visit all the houses, recruit Ralph, who you have to talk to with Leaf, including that house over far on the left, and then have Leaf visit that church all in about 2-3 turns, whatever, like basically the minimum possible. That's possible to do. But if you want Astra, you have to wait around. And why would you want Astra on Marita? Well, maybe it's sort of overkill, you might say, especially if you've played Fire Emblem 4, and you've noted that Astra just, whenever it procs on, one of your Myrmidons, it's so ridiculously way too much power. Like, you kill an enemy like 4 times over, basically. But in this case, it's good if you... I think I talked about having Marita as a backup plan for killing bosses, like say if you lose Asbel in the context of an Ironman. And that's kind of what I was thinking here. And I just like Marita anyway, so it was sort of like a sentimental thing, sort of. But you'll notice that Ralph is now surrounded by enemy units because I've been dallying on trying to recruit him. Now, Amalda up there has, even though she has a vulnerary in her inventory, she is invincible for this chapter. So you don't have to worry about her if you want to recruit her later. She is also essentially route specific. You don't recruit her during the route, but if you don't go her route and get Sleuth, then you can't get her in a later chapter, because he's the one that recruits her. I'll talk about that a bit more later on. So, I mean, this chapter was really good for Homeros. And like with the last chapter, I don't really know what I was thinking here. It's you got to be careful. That there's like the terrain is hard to parse, I think, because oh god, I'm having like PTSD flashbacks just watching this. There are guys with bows, so you got to look out for that. You got to make sure that the units that you're blocking with, you don't move them out of a certain range, and then you open up an avenue for somebody else. Because remember that those guys are gonna, charge straight down the houses, and I don't think that the archers go for houses. So, just wait and see. In the meantime, let's talk about the route split. So the A route you get, which is the Norden route, you get Sleuth, you get Misha, who is a Pegasus Knight or Pegasus Rider. The names of the Pegasus units in this game are different than in the other games. It's like they kind of downgraded each of the ranks. I don't really know how to describe it. You get a ton more items. You get like several warp staves, even if you like one of them you have to capture a unit, but it's there. And then another you get just from visiting a house. You get like a rescue staff. The downside is that oh, you get Ilios, provided that Olwyn is dead or not recruited. Which our Olwyn is not recruited, so we could get him. Here you see that Ralph is no more, so Ralph is not invincible. And Ralph is like a pretty pedestrian hero, but he's good. He has like A-rank swords, I think, or yeah, I think he has A-rank swords and not axes. I think axes are essentially his secondary weapon type. So not a huge loss there. I don't know if you count that a death in the same way that I don't know if you count Shiva as a death. So, whatever. The A route is harder in some regards. The B route is more confusing, I say that, than it is hard. The A route has the stronger enemies. It's harder to skip chapters. You can't really skip per se. I mean, you can, but you need a little bit more muscle to do it, I think. And the B route is like, some people would probably call it the gimmick route. It's because there's like warp tiles, and there's this funny thing you do in the chapter after that where you can get civilians to help you, like pouring down like a valley to get to where a ton of ballista are. And so if you are truly gaming per se, like if you want all the best stuff, you absolutely want to go A route. Just be aware that in order to get all that stuff, especially the characters, you got to do some obscure stuff. You got to have Karen talk to a hostile Misha, and here, see what I'm talking about. Yeah, I think I even checked the range there, and I just said, yeah, that looks good. So Ed is gone. I mean, it's not quite as bad as Dean being gone. He was like one square away there. But still, I think that Edda is really useful, especially on the A route. There's a lot of stuff that flyers can help out with, like guys getting put to sleep. They can carry them over some rivers and stuff like that. They just, I really wish I hadn't lost Edda there. It's not a, there's nothing minor about that, even though people tend to not be too high on Edda. But yeah, there's door keys that you can buy in this chapter, so that's what I'm having Linoan do there. At this point, I should have enough for the rest of the game, I think. Whoever you put down there, if you want to have them kill bandits, is pretty much invincible if you put them on like a mountain. But I would give them a vulnerary anyway. Homeros is pretty much past promotion right here, and because he gains like 5 magic, 5 speed or something on promotion, you definitely don't want to wait too long with leveling him up. Just milking those extra levels. Even though with Elite, he does gain quite a bit of experience, even when other characters would be getting like 10 per kill or something like that. So Shannon eventually appears from the center fort up top, I think, and what I thought was that he goes straight up to that escape path up on the left. But let's see what happens in a few turns. Meanwhile, Amalda is supposed to say something and then try to escape herself. She'll be like, okay, well, I've had enough. I gotta go. But for some reason, she never did that here. And I don't know if it has to do with Ralph being dead. I can't imagine that would have anything to do with it. Maybe I just missed the little dialogue box or monologue box or something. But the only thing she does here is she broke her weapon, so that's funny. And she's out of vulneraries, but that doesn't matter because she's invincible. Meanwhile, what I should have been doing down here is, which I usually do, I think, is having somebody block the church, because that makes the bandits have, more aggressive AI, and that's going to have another add another little wrinkle to the map later on. But yeah, if you know what you're doing, the B route is quicker, but you really hamstring your long-term resource acquisition, because it's one of those things where it tends to manifest in such a way that, like, let's say you get a warp staff, you get an extra warp staff, so then, like, let's say in chapter, what is it, 21, 22, the one with Reinhardt, there is like a house that's kind of far off that has another warp staff, and if you get one warp staff, like, extra earlier on, then you might say, well, I have enough warp uses where I can just use warp to get these far off houses before I seize, or something like that. So it's one of those things I like to call, it's like the rich get richer thing in games, where if you're doing well, you have more opportunities to do well in the future, whereas games typically don't have like mercy features where they're saying, well, if you didn't get this and this, we'll at least give you this. I guess maybe the idea that if you don't have Olwen, you can get Ilios is sort of like that, although not really, because you have to, like, if you have her and you want Ilios, you have to sacrifice her, basically. And there's actually a story implication to that, which I've actually done that before, even in an Ironman, just because it's kind of funny. It actually has, like, some minor gameplay variations associated with it that are kind of actually a bad thing, believe it or not. Maybe if we go that route, I will talk about that there. But let's just hold on here and watch the rest of this map play out. Here we can test out the lance that Dean got, if we so desire, but the silver lance actually has greater accuracy. I think I talked about that in the previous chapter. So with these bandits funneling toward the church, it's good to take them out whenever you can. Meanwhile, Marita can get some well-deserved experience up here. I think I have a strength boosting scroll on her to get her up to promotion, because if you don't get her up here, it's kind of hard to level her up later, because there's going to be stronger enemies just as soon as the next chapter, that they ramp up at least like 2 tiers in how strong the average enemy here is. Like, there's more dark mages and stuff, which are a pain to fight unless you have some sort of brave weapon or something. You don't have to risk getting poisoned. So this is like the last hurrah for any weak units that you want to train up, basically. And I don't know why I'm not blocking that church tile. I don't know why I'm not doing it. Because I knew that it affected their AI in helpful ways, and it reduced the likelihood that I would screw up, because I think if they destroy that church, I don't think it's a game over. I think it just means that you have to head off to one of the sides. Don't quote me on that, though. So here you see Shannon finally spawned, and he spawns with these thieves, which I think they might have like killing edges or something, but I don't think they even attack, really. There's a later chapter, I think, where they also, like, some of these thieves that you see in these maps actually have kind of scary weapons, but even if you totally block them off, they never seem to want to attack you, so to speak. So here's what I was intimating about the pathing with Shannon. Usually he goes up to that top path, but I think maybe what he's actually doing right now is trying to get to the church, which is why I finally went to block it with Linoan. I really don't know. It's some of the units in this chapter are just behaving so strangely compared to what I'm used to, and I've played this map like, close to 10 times. So I'm really at a loss as to what's going on here mechanically. And even on this turn here, Shannon just isn't going to go the way that I want him to. And worse yet, there's ranged units taking pot shots at Marita, which are forming kind of a barrier around him. And, this was just so frustrating that I spent all this time in this chapter just to get Astra, and all I got for it was one of the houses got destroyed that I should have visited. And I don't think it has anything super amazing. I think it's just like an armor slayer or something like that. Edda died, so I lost Edda, and I think she had one of the items from the houses in her inventory as well. Ralph is dead. That didn't have to happen. And I just, I wasted like close to 50 minutes. 50 minutes, not 15. On combined preps and just playing the chapter that honestly I could have been over with in freaking like 5 minutes. So after this I kind of resolved not to let that sort of thing happen after that. Not so much in terms of unit death. We'll probably be seeing more of that, but just tarrying too long and not cutting your losses and just running. So if I didn't make it clear, you definitely want to go the A route if you want all the best items and the best characters and everything like that. You'd have to be a little bit crazy to go to B route. So that's why we're going there. See you next time.